Let's take a look at what it means to nest your seams. Now, I'll start by saying that in the Land of the Sky collection, and actually in all the patterns that I design, I provide pressing instructions so that when possible, your seams will nest. It's my preferred method, but you should know that it's totally optional. But let me talk about the benefits of nesting your seams and then quickly show you what we mean by them. It's essentially butting up your seams so that they lock together almost like pieces of a puzzle. And there's a lot of reasons that I really like it. First of all, it helps achieve a flatter, more accurate quilt block as you're piecing things together. It also reduces bulk underneath the areas where lots of fabric is coming together. I find it's easier to align your seams when you go to sew your two rows together. And ultimately, I do believe that if you nest your seams and take the time to do that, you have a much better chance at points that really match up crisply, which of course we all love when that happens. Let me demonstrate. I've got two rows, let's call these rows. I've just put a bunch of HSTs together. I've sewn my 1/4 inch seam allowance. I have not pressed anything yet. And so I have these two rows, and I know that they're going to go together like this. What we're going to do is press the seams in one direction on the top row and the other direction in the bottom row, and then I'll show you how they cozy up together when you go to sew the two rows together. These are the two seams that we're going to nest. Let's do that. So I always put a pin where on the side that I'm pressing the seams toward. That way, if I turn my blocks around or my rows around and things get mixed up, as they always do, I always know which way that I'm pressing my seams. And by pressing my seams this way on this row, call this row 1, and pressing my seams this way on row 2, they're going to interlock together. I'll show you what I mean. So row 1, I want to press my seams to toward this block. And this is how I do it. I like to set my seam first and then turn this over with the seam still laying as I just set it, and just rolling my iron over that way. Then I'll turn this one over, make sure it's flat, set the seam simply by putting some heat to it so the threads really soak into the fabric, turning this piece over without my seam moving, and pressing it like that. And then I usually turn it over to the back side. And again, thank goodness I put the pin there. I would forget which way I was going, but my seams are pressing toward that direction. And give them another press. So there's row 1. And I pressed my seams that direction. Now I'm going to press them this direction. Give it another little press on the back. Here's my pin. They're going this way. Here's the cool part. These are now my two rows that are going to go together. Normally, if you're not nesting your seams and you press them all open, you would put this here. You're going to sew down here, and however you would line up your seams, you would do that. When you nest, I'm going to take these out because I already know I'm poking myself. So put this one on top. Now, here is what a nested seam looks like. This seam is pointing that direction. This seam is pointing that direction. And that's not nesting, because you can see they're not touching each other. You want to butt them against each other. And you can even feel it. And so I can tell they're right up against each other. The seam's all going that way, that one's going that way. And I just clip it right over the two seams that are locked together. And then on this one, I'm doing the same thing. And so this seam and this seam are going to butt up against each other. And I can feel it. I clip it. And now I'm going to go to my machine, sew down I'll be right back after I sew this. I've just sewn the 2 rows together, row 1 and 2, with their nested seams. And I can see before I press it that my points came together beautifully there. And this is where a bunch of fabric is coming together. The seam from the HSTs, the seam between the HSTs when I sewed them together. And that's why nesting them allows you to press it flatter. So I'm gonna open that up. You're now gonna press this new seam of the 2 rows open. And often I'll use a spray, either my water mister or flatter or best press, just to get them really, really flat. The beauty of nesting is right here. If I hadn't nested, then I would have seam material on both sides of this seam and seam material on both. I would line them up more by eye than by feel, where the 2 seams are going up against each other. And it just makes for a less bulky point right there, because that's where a lot of fabric's coming together. That's why in many patterns there are pressing instructions, so that when you then put rows together or pieces of blocks together, the seams will nest. They won't always. A seam has to line up from one piece to another for them to nest. In certain patterns, not every single part of the pattern is going to come together seam by seam, but where they do, it's really nice to try nesting.